Wherever I speak about the psychology of men in marriage, I always lead with the idea that men are more sensitive than women. I can't say this often enough because number one, women don't believe me. And number two, men know it's a fact, but they do their best to deny it. In the beginning, when God created Adam and placed him in the garden, he was amazing and wonderful, but he wasn't sufficient alone. That's when God took part of Adam's flesh and formed Eve. In the process, God was meeting a need that Adam didn't even know he had. Man needed someone separate from himself, someone who would be available and responsive to him, someone who was like him, yet different enough to enrich his experience, someone he could protect, someone he could care for. Even now, here in the 21st century, men are much more vulnerable to women than women are to men, whether women believe that or not. It's the way that God created us. A funny thought came to me several years ago about X and Y chromosomes. I was thinking about the fact that a male has both an X and a Y chromosome, whereas a female has two X chromosomes. Suddenly, a visual popped into my head. When you look at an X and a Y written side by side on a piece of paper, you notice something's missing from the Y. By adding one small line to it, you'd have an X. In my imagination, that missing piece of that Y that would make it an X, is symbolic of Adam's rib. An interesting reality that shows up on our respective chromosomes. If you've read about Adam and Eve in the New Testament, you may recall that Paul wrote, God created a woman for man because he needed her, not because the woman needed him. This must surely be why men have that vulnerability, that sensitivity at their core. I believe God did that on purpose. The man needed to be sensitive enough to his wife that he would rally to protect her no matter what. But just like everything else that resulted from the fall of man, all that got skewed. Instead of Adam stepping up to protect his wife, he went along with whatever she said. He gave up his leadership and even his dominion. You remember the story. The serpent comes to Eve in the garden and says, Why are you not eating this delicious fruit? You're not going to die. It's not a big deal. Convinced that God is holding out on her, Eve eats the fruit. She then turns and offers it to Adam. Without questioning, he eats it too. I sometimes ask my students what Adam should have done when his wife was having this conversation with the serpent. Men often say, he should have told his wife not to talk to the serpent and not to eat the fruit. But I disagree. I believe it was Adam's job to protect Eve. He had dominion over every creature. What he should have done, and I say should because we probably would have done the same thing he did, but he could have and should have commanded the serpent to stop talking to his wife. God had given Adam the power to say, Get the hell out of here. You got no business here. Instead, Adam relinquished his role as her leader and protector. Many men today seem to be in that same position Adam was in. A man is strong, yet highly vulnerable to his wife. He needs her, but he fears her criticism and her rejection, as well as her words and her emotions. He often feels attacked or blamed by the one person he'd give his life to protect. Now he protects himself like a helpless victim. He's lost his voice when he and his wife need it most. He's no longer honored for the sacrifices he makes every day. If he speaks up, he's pegged as a villain. I'm telling you, it's time for that to change. We need our heroes to rise up again, to say no to evil, to protect us. Men and women need to partner with one another to make this world a more glorious place. That means you need to understand how your mate works, how your mate was created, how your differing biology and experience can make you stronger together. Solomon, the wisest man to ever live, wrote, Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of three strands is not quickly broken. I think that's a pretty wise saying. A lot of people have that read at their wedding and then they forget about it. But I'm here to encourage you to highlight the beauty of your differences, to teach you how to maximize the benefits of being a couple, and to empower you both to live as God intended. Hero and heroine together. How cool would that be?